software called, there we go, thank you. Co-founder of some software called farmtofacts.org, which supports farmers markets around the country. It's part of a lot of stuff. And with my colleagues in Icicle, an AI institute I'm part of, we've created this software and to support folks like you. So that was too long of an introduction. Let's go now in alphabetical order, okay? So Erica, would you please go next? Or
Hi there. Yep. Sorry,
sorry.
my camera's off. I'm Erica Anna. I am an outreach specialist or health equity coordinator in the Office of Community Health in the Department of Family Medicine and Community Health. I primarily work with community health workers in Dane County and statewide. And I also am newly examining food as medicine strategies, initiatives, and research as a part of my role in the Office of Community Health.
Yeah, Erica. Jackie, you were actually first, right? Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. And that's okay, Anna. Thank you, or Erica. Thanks for jumping in. So I'm Jackie Anderson, the Executive Director at Feeding Wisconsin. So we are the state partner state association for all the Feeding America food banks throughout the state. And we primarily do policy and advocacy work as well as overseeing food share throughout the state. And similar to what Erica said, we also are in a lot of food as medicine conversations, as well as looking at SDOH referrals and how food banks can be a part of those conversations as well. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. Cindy, I guess you're next.
My name is Cindy Beach. I'm a public service manager for the Public Library of Youngstown and Mahoning County. I work locally with our healthy food retail work group, and we also have a culinary literacy center here in the library. So I do a number of things in a community with food.
And Cindy was part of a Mellon Foundation, a working group on food in libraries that I was part of, and it was terrific, interesting stuff. So who's next? Charlie, are you next?
Yeah,
No.
so
Yeah.
I'm Charlie. I lead the software development here at UW. I'm an undergraduate, a junior at UW-Madison.
Nolan?
Just want to use yours. Okay. I'm Nolan. I'm also an undergraduate in the Kaufman Lab. I also lead software development. I've been here for a little while. I've helped work primarily on some of the farm to facts tool set which we use, and also help with the FASS model that we're talking about today. Cool.
Rose, special person that you are.
Thanks, Alfonso. So I go by Rose. My name is Rosemarie Santa Gonzalez, but it's a long name, so Rose will do. I'm a postdoctoral fellow here at Georgia Tech, and I'm part of the AI Institute for Advances in Optimization.
Carlitos.
Hi everyone, I'm Carlos Guzman. I'm software engineer for the AI Institute Icicle, working out of Ohio State, and I'm mostly a consultant for the software team over at the Kaufman Lab.
Thank you, Edna. You can tell that I'm getting old because don't remember my alphabet. Go ahead.
I was trying to figure out what you were doing, but I'm glad you are running the show this time. Hi everyone, I'm Edna Edie. I'm an assistant professor at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm currently the director of the lab, the Kaufman Lab, which Alfonso founded. Happy to be in this space. I, with Alfonso, co-lead several grants across the state and the nation on related to farmers market work, food equity, and this particular grant or this particular project is something I've been just tangentially affiliated with, and so I'm happy to see updates today.
Great, thanks. Janet, would you go next, please?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Janet Simon, she, her pronouns. I am the VP of Strategy and Development here at Second Harvest Food Bank. So we support about 300 different food distribution outlets across 16 counties in southern Wisconsin. And my role here is related to basically external relations, everybody that we work with to support the organization financially, and then everybody that we work with to distribute that food. So we're all about food access and the impact of the food that we're getting to folks.
Thank you, Janet. Davika?
Hi, I'm David Kasuri. I also work with Janet at Second Harvest, and my role is the data and research curator. So, all about collecting data, using data to inform our work, um, and potential research collaborations as well. So, and I was previously at the UW, and I've been here for about a year and a half. So, thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'd like to take a special moment right now because Darius Slaughter, who's able to join, got married 3 weeks ago. Darius, I just want to say to you, my friend, congratulations. And he's in his office. His webcam isn't cooperating, and I've been in his office, and it's a delightful little thing where they celebrate a university in Ohio whose name I cannot say out loud because I'm at Wisconsin. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, obviously. And there you go in the chat. You can see uh well what he's up to. But he's more than that. Let me tell you, he's more than that. He's very interested in this model for food security implications in their county. And so thanks, Darius, and congratulations. Okay. So let's open up. And by the way, Darius, we are recording because there's some folks at a state extension meeting that could not make it. So let's who's got the slide deck? Charlie, do you have it? Let's the I'll start with the slide deck because I know the intro. The point of our work here is to enable people to to do decision making around food access in an effective way, in a privacy protecting way, to enable them to connect or federate federal and state sorts of data sets with their own private data set if they so choose, in by deploying a what we call an agent-based model that enables us to 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 make predictions about behavior in the event of for the moment in the event of a grocery store closure or a grocery store opening in a particular jurisdiction. So the team that you could see right there, the practitioners, we just heard from everybody. Go ahead, Charlie, you're fine. You can and everybody, at least we know we have a sense of you folks. Go ahead, Charlie. So I want to emphasize that this is based on census data right now. And so it's actual data from neighborhoods. And it's very important for us to build a tool that is responsive to you and your needs. And so we want you to stop us at any point and build up your questions because at the end, we want you to help us make this useful for you. And we want you to know that you would be welcome to join more regular calls. If one or more of you has a particular interest in both the software, the back end software, as well as the front end, the user interface, in helping us develop it, that would be terrific. We wouldn't ask you to code, obviously, but your responses so that it's useful to folks like you is just vitally important. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Charlie. He's going to talk about what is an agent? What is an agent? What is an agent-based model? Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, so as you heard from Alfonso, we're creating an agent-based model, which means we have entities in what you can call a simulation, and each entity makes their own decisions. So our agents in this model are households, and these households have a few attributes that are like the base attributes. Of course, we'd like to add more to make this model more widespread. But our basic ones are number of people in each household, number of vehicles that household has access to, income of that household, and then number of working people in that household. Then Rose, you can go next. So the basics of how this model works is there's going to be stores in this environment, and there's going to be household agents in this environment, and each household agent makes informed decisions based on their attributes like income, access to vehicle, on which store to go to, and how much food they're getting at each store. And that's how we make the model work and get that food access data, right? Okay, so how do we give attributes to each agent? So we um, operate at the census tract level granularity. That's the lowest we can act at without getting into like personal private data. So a tract is smaller than a county. There's about 320 tracts in Franklin County, Ohio, which is our initial test district right now. So we get all of the data from each tract, and then within each tract, we distribute attributes to households that matches the data that the Census Bureau has. I'll turn it over to Alan.
Mhm. So to illustrate, I like to draw attention to the map on the left side. You can see that the tracks are boxes. And the map on the right shows how household income is reflected in our census tract data. So each little square on the right-hand side represents a household that's colored by their income. So green would mean higher income households and red is lower income. So you can see even at the tract level, you can really achieve granular differences reflected of the real economic situation. And this protects privacy since we're not really making a one-to-one mapping of real houses data, but it's still realistic because of the granularity that census tract allows us to achieve.
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. So, um, talking a bit more about like how do we capture this agent behavior? Unless, sorry, did I speak over you, Alan? Did you want to continue? No. Okay. So yeah, so in an agent-based model, we are modeling how the public would be behaving. As Alan and Charlie mentioned, we do capture the income and if the person has a vehicle or if the household has access to a vehicle or not. And then over time, we would be simulating how they go about their food shopping. These agents interact with the environment, so based on the proximity of the stores around them, as well as the behavior characteristics based on their attributes. If they have a car, then they can go to a supermarket that is further, are also captured in the model. And we basically are interested in not only modeling each individual agent, but seeing the whole impact across the system so that we can evaluate the policy for opening or closing or moving stores around. In addition, we also have a scoring mechanism inside the FASS that helps us assess the different policies or the different options that we have. So right now, we have that quantification. It does use two different types of stores that you will be seeing in the demo real soon. The supermarkets that we assume have a higher score because they have more food, and the convenience stores because they have a lower selection or less options within the store. Again, we're taking into account the transportation access, and with this score, the intention is to have insights on how there are different disparities in the system, and also knowing how are the different policies behaving and impacting the people. Now, I'm going to turn it back over to Charlie. Charlie, I hope my audio is working. Please let me know. Okay, pardon me. I just need to make sure that I'm sharing the audio. Charlie, if you have it ready to go, I can let you share instead.
I don't.
When you, Rosemary, are you sharing your screen?
Yes.
User
Yes, I
So
am.
interface
stop
today.
sharing.
It
Oh, we
doesn't
can't.
work right
Hey
now?
everyone, I'm going to go through a quick demonstration of the beta version of our user interface today.
Can
So
you
we
up
can
the
look
volume a little
first
bit?
at the map of our simulation. Can first take a look. Hey everyone, I'm going to go through a quick demonstration of the beta version of our user interface today. So we can look first at the map of our simulation. Can first take a look at the legend, which has the components that are on our map. You can see supermarket is denoted by a hexagon, convenience store denoted by a smaller triangle, and then households are in the shape of a house, and households with higher food access are green in color, and then households with lower food access are red. So we can zoom in and take a closer look here, and we see a hexagon denoting the supermarket, and we can see the name of the supermarket and the type, and then a convenience store here, also name and type. We can also explore our households, zoom in on one, and we can see these attributes that we get from the Census Bureau and the Google Maps database. So income, household size, number of vehicles, number of workers, number of stores within a mile, distance that they have to travel to get to the closest store, their transit time, their public transit time, and then our food access score. Take another look at another house. You can see this. All of this data is gleaned from the census database and distributed to these households based on that. So let's look at more of a community standpoint here. If we zoom out, we can see kind of a crescent here of people that have a higher chance of low food access. We have our data bar over here, our step number, which I'll get to later. We have the state we're in, the county, the number of households that we render here, the number of supermarkets in this area, number of convenience stores, the average household income in this area, and the average household vehicles. We're still adding metrics to this, and we'd love your feedback on that. So let's go through a quick use case. So how would you maybe use this tool? So let's say we wanted to place a market in a place that would impact the most people, right? We can go to our features tab over here, and we can add a market. Let's choose this park right here to create our market. So we can go to add store. We'll call it Charlie's Market. It'll be a supermarket, put in its location, and then our new supermarket shows up here. Okay, so now let's explain the step function. Okay, so the step takes an agent, all the agents, through an unspecified period of time, which we would love your input on. Right now, it takes the agents through a month of real time. So it calculates how they would react within that month and then their new amount of food access. So let's step once. Wait a second. So we completed our first step. Not too much change within the first month. Let's step again. Now we can see a pretty drastic change after that second month. So now most of this crescent is gone now. We have households in this area have a lot more food access, especially these, which were deep red earlier since they didn't have access to a vehicle, and the closest store was a mile away. So we can see exactly how this impacts the surroundings. So we could continue stepping through the months and seeing how this continues to impact people, but let's demo our remove store feature. So we can select that same store, Charlie's Market, and we see it disappears here. We can step again, see how this changes. So not much change right now. And now we can see we come back to that crescent of low food access. So now let's go a little bit farther and remove this Kroger here. Select that. And then we can step again. One more time. Now we can see a pretty drastic shift through here.
So yeah, great explanation by Charlie. And we're still in our early drafts of what data we'd like to output to the user exactly. Our ideas right now is outputting maybe a generated PDF of the average change in food score over time. But like Alfonso said, we are hoping to know what metrics would be most useful to you and what should we measure for your stakeholders in the community or reporting to someone else.
So I can't remember, is this my job or is this Charlie's slide?
You can go for this, Alfonso.
Okay, so we created this model because we think it's very important for folks to be able to combine, to use public data more effectively, and if necessary, combine public data with private data. So let's say Second Harvest or Feeding America or other organizations want to bring their own private data to the table and they want to relate it or federate it with public sector data. We want to be able to enable you to do that. So we wanted to create this model to enable you to make decision making, to be able to inform consumers better than you could. Quick example, I was at the summit on AI leadership because I'm part of the Icicle. You see Carlos's background there. I should put mine on too, I guess. I'm part of the Icicle AI Institute. Farm to Facts is, and the Wisconsin is part of that. And I was at the summit in Pittsburgh 3 weeks ago, and talking with Department of Homeland Security, and I told them, well, what if we had a sophisticated version of this model 6 months ago? Then, when Hurricane Helene crossed the Gulf Coast, they could have started. They were noticing massive inundations. Well, what if Feeding America, the outlet of Feeding America in Asheville, North Carolina, what if they would have modeled that? Seen that they were in a precarious situation and said to themselves, okay, if what do we have to do to reposition all this food so that it's accessible to folks, to the low income, low access folks in USDA terminology, and so that we do that now, we get a bunch of trucks now and move it to public schools or religious organizations or wherever out of the floodplain, because as you know, that was a disaster on top of a disaster. So, there's lots of other policy things that folks could advocate for or note the implications of. One of them is, what if you put in mobile markets? How does that change people's access? And I know that Darius, we've talked about that for in your neck of the woods. So that's why this slide is in here, thinking about you. Next slide. So we have a bunch of questions for you. Uh, we really are grateful, deeply, deeply grateful for this hour. I mean, I'm looking at the folks who are here, and you stakeholder folks, you represent a lot of salary. I really value that. I really appreciate it. And we really do believe that we can incorporate variables into the model that'll enable you or at least we hope and believe that we can incorporate variables into the modeling process that enable you to do even better what you already do, the important work you already do. So we've got a survey we're going to drop. We've got a whole host of questions um, uh, that we can email you and ask for your input on. But let's get your reactions. What do you think? Can I get we're all going to take notes. Can I get anybody's reaction? Is it interesting? Should we stop now? Should we quit doing this work and go find something else to do? Because there's lots to do in the world, no doubt about it. But would this be helpful to y'all?
I can go ahead and jump in and in short, yes, I think this could be really useful. I mean, certainly the example that you just showed, if there's a disaster on the way and we can anticipate some store closures to be able to model where to put food resources to secure the most folks, that is certainly a use that I could see in those specific instances. I do have questions because, of course, I came in with my own agenda of what would we like to see and what would we like to be able to do. So one of my questions would be, it sounds like right now the input that you change, the factor that you change is adding a store or taking away a store, and that the impact of that on an area. So there are two things that we as a food bank would be doing. It would be inserting a pantry. You know, would a pantry better support this, or a mobile pantry of some sort of a food distribution? And I don't know if that it's not the same as a grocery store because you don't need the same purchasing power in accessing a pantry. So the algorithm might have to be a little bit different. The other thing is that we are considering ways to provide folks with purchasing power. So that is another way to get people food access rather than literally putting the food there and distributing food, is to providing more purchasing power in what they have available to them. So is household income a factor that could be adjusted to say, what if we took the households in this area and increased their income by $100 a month? Does that put them in a different level of access? Does that move them from convenience store to supermarket? And then the last thing, and I would leave this to Davica, not to put you on the spot, Davica, but if you want to think about it, is the additional overlay of food insecurity data, because your model is one model of shopping choice, but we do have lots of national data on food insecurity rates and whether or not some of these changes move people up the ladder of food security by that definition. So I will stop.
That's awesome. So, Davika, I'd love to hear from you, but if it's okay, let's get a bunch of other questions out there. Let's get a range of people's reactions and questions and criticisms, please. And Darius, thanks. Let's just note that Darius dropped that in the chat for folks to have a look at it. Any other reactions for us to
Yeah,
start?
so I have some thoughts, but Devika, were you going to say something before?
I'll say something eventually. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think I keep looking at this. So granted, I'm coming to this space on the state level, representing all the food banks, but also understanding federal funding. And so I guess I'm just thinking about like if we could follow the household to understand where they're getting the food, if we could couple that with the fact of knowing what their income is, that would help inform us because oftentimes, like a food bank that is participates in TFAB. So if they get federal food given to them, oftentimes they have to make guesses, sometimes like a year in advance, on what type of food they anticipate the community is going to need. Information that you all have, like if we're able to track where people are getting their food, would help then inform them to be able to say, yes, I actually know that I'm going to need pears because I know that they're not able to get pears in this location. So I guess I'm thinking about it from that perspective. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that I'm thinking about too is if we could track someone who is eligible for food share or SNAP benefits, if we could track where they're getting their food from, that would be another piece that would be really interesting for us on the state perspective. So I'll stop there and I'm sure I'll have more questions too, but those are just some gut reactions.
Those are great gut reactions. Thank you, Jackie. Other great gut reactions. And Darius, yes, man, we hear you about how to adopt the model that way. We do. We hear you. Other gut reactions. Devika, please. And I did not mean to think about if you felt. I apologize for not allowing you to tag on immediately to Janet. Okay.
No, it's okay. I feel like this could be a long ongoing conversation just because it's really cool. And there's so many aspects to it. So I think before I'll start with some of the questions I had about how you kind of built the model. So one question is the data for that you're using to estimate the probability of behavior, is that based on like existing data, or like how did you create those probabilities? Second question, should I just shoot all the questions out there first? Second question is, has this been or could this be validated in any way? Like, is this at all how real households function? Is this completely, like, is there any way we could see if this would match reality and to what extent? And I think my other question was, no, I think those were my two main questions about them. Oh, the third was the food access score. I was curious, like, to know a little bit more about that. Like, I think you mentioned that there's a nutrition component in there, but would love to know more about what all is in that food access score.
That's terrific. So, Cindy, do you have any reactions that you'd like to share? I just wanted to y'all to go first and get your big bucket things out there. Oops, you're muted though, Cindy.
Is there any thought to putting producers in the map itself, as far as, so if you're looking at making mobile markets or pop-up things, that you can see where you might pick up things for that?
Great comment. Great comment. So there's a number of things here. So I'm going to leave aside the technical stuff, Davika, for a second, okay? And I want to do a couple of broad things. For those of you who didn't know it, we have this software that we developed about 10 years ago, farmtofacts.org. That does a lot of work with SNAP and double dollars programs at farmers markets in different places in the country. And so to your question, the question regarding food insecurity, SNAP benefits, there's one approach, right? There's one approach. And of course, grocers have similar data, but it's privately held. And so, again, the notion of being able to relate different data sets together in a privacy protecting way can enable us to make these kinds of questions more tractable. We can get answers to these questions. To the question about validation, I think that's absolutely the most important thing. I mean, shoot, Edna and my colleagues get tired of me. I mean, we all get tired of each other poking at methodological problems. Okay. So those are very important. There's a lot of empirical research, as you know. I mean, some of it done by y'all, right, in reports about how people access things. And so we need to make our models more robust by a deeper dive into that literature. I think it's really important, Jackie, two of the things that you said that made me think, one of them is the idea of sticky marketing. So people are sort of stuck to things. They sort of get a little sticky and habitual about things. And right now our model doesn't capture that well. So where people are captured by marketing practices that artificially increase their income, we don't have a sense of that. From my youth, I'm 62 years old. I remember my mom using S&H green stamps.
Mhm.
Okay. As a marketing practice to get you purchasing from the same places. And I think it's really important about the Fed's perspective in this because we know hundreds of tons of apples were destroyed because they were underutilized because they were they were in the program as to the max, but then boom, it was just it was oversupply. And so now producers are making decisions to do other things, which goes to Cindy's question. Well, what if those producers were allowing gleaning, right? Or if there was some foraging opportunities. So those are metrics associated with that I would like to see eventually us build into farm to facts because we work a lot with direct market farmers who are typically close to cities because they sell in community supported ag, CSA shares, or they sell at local farmers markets. So there's that increases food access, food security through this constellation of activities. So it's about that whole constellation. No one bucket does it all, right? No one activity does it all. And then I guess that leads me back to Janet's opening comments about the algorithm. And yes, boy howdy, not only can there be changes in that particular algorithm, but new algorithms developed to capture other questions that are associated with this conversation. So that's my first response, but let's do a little deeper dive. Who wants to do to respond to some of these questions in a little deeper way? Charlie, Alan, Rose, with respect to, for instance, the model itself. So I can say something about that. So 3 years ago, 4 years, 5 years ago, when we were writing the NSF grant that created Icicle, the one of the projects in that grant was a grocery store closure. Now there was a variety of things associated with that were wanting. There was just not, couldn't do what we demoed today. So whenever that project, the institute was going to give that project up, and I said, no, let me take that project. So I took that project, and this is where it's going with the collaboration of AI, the AI for Opt Institute, represented by Rose, with the support of Carlos Guzman, the senior developer, software developer for iSchool, with the students that you heard, that you listened to. So this has multiple purposes, right? We want to be a public service, but at the same time, I never stop wanting my students to hit the world more able to do things that they want to do and support people in different ways. So that's a little history of the model. I thought it was important to get that out there. Go ahead, Rose. Did you or Charlie? Go ahead.
Well, I can go ahead, but before I address the specific individual questions that I took note on, I wanted to highlight that we do need your help. That's why we're here in this call, and we do need volunteers, especially if it's one of you or all of you, it would be great because we need help on two fronts. One of the fronts is we want someone to play with it, play with the tool as soon as it's released, try to break it. Those are the best testers, the ones that try to break things and do 100 million things, and then we know which are our pain points or where we can grow and what we can change. And we also want someone to talk to, or if we can talk to each of you individually, in terms of our scoring mechanisms. And some of your questions already alluded to that. So if I go one by one, and pardon me if I didn't take notes on everything, I was trying as fast as I could. So Janet, you mentioned different different types of points for food access. That was part of our vision from the beginning, but we would need to have more of that insider's knowledge and practitioner's knowledge that you all bring to the table in terms of what's really the difference. I mean, physically and as consumers, we could see a difference between a supermarket and a grocery store, but we might need to know more of the nuances in terms of policy and actual food nutrition. What would be the difference between a pantry, between a supermarket? We know there are some specific differences there, but we don't know how you use it in terms of policy. So the closer we can get it in terms of how do you differentiate between these points, that would be better for us to incorporate it into the model and be able to see the behavior of the agents in that. Same thing for purchasing power. Right now, Charlie, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now the purchasing power is directly linked to the incomes of the households which come from the census. But it is still a variable, meaning that it's still a value in our model that could be changed. But then we would need to also open a discussion on what kind of purchasing power changes are we talking about? Are we talking about stamps that can only be used in these specific kinds of store or that have some other restrictions to it? Sorry, I saw that Darius also put something in the chat. Please don't forget to fill out the survey if you can. Thank you. So yeah, so we would need to have a conversation more in depth about what exactly is it that you look at when you think about purchasing power. Because if it's just the dollar side, that would be something very easily to implement. Um, there's also, Jackie, you talked about following the households and having more of that visibility. Sorry, I lost Jackie on the screen. There, I see you now. And how we can track what people are doing. I want to say yes and no. So we can incorporate it into the agents as we have them right now, but it would be a randomized assignment or in some other way that won't infringe in their privacy. We also have some folks that work on other privacy framework mechanisms that we have developed together. So that's something that we can incorporate. So the yes comes from like, yes, we can see how that would affect the system. The no from the tracking, we won't be able to see each individual and exactly predict each individual and identifying them. We would have to have some differentiation so that we cannot really trace it back. And we would have to see and also open the discussion again in terms of like which databases are you using when you actually track people? Is it enough to just track them within a county, or do you track them at which level of granularity? Are you thinking about that? And Davika, I loved your questions. I feel like you and I can have the conversation very in depth in terms of the data and probably with all the developers as well. But yes, we do have probabilities that are tied in terms of how the agents are behaving in the system and the probability with which they would choose either a supermarket or a convenience store. That's how it is right now in the model. Again, Charlie, Ellen, if at any point you feel like you want to add something, please interrupt me. Um, Validation, we still have not run through validations. We would have to identify a testing data set so that we can validate against two separate data sets. Because if you train on one set and then you validate against it, it's cheating. So yeah, we need to go through that as well. And the same for the food access score. Right now, we're only using the income and the vehicle access. We have had discussions of other things we want to include in it, such as if there's specific vulnerable population in that family, if there's a heat index and they have to, go through the streets under specific weather conditions that affect that access, especially if they do not have a car. So these are things that we have talked about and thrown out there. But again, we need your insights from the practitioner's point of view of what is it exactly that you look at that affects the moment where people go and access things. You probably have seen this already in the field, and maybe in a discussion together, we can identify different data sources, be it like forecasting, weather forecasting data that we could pair with other data, or maybe you have your own. And yes, thank you, Alfonso, for the S3. And then Cindy, yes, producers would be something that could be added to it. Again, like it would be a differentiation on the different types of agents or stores or how they interact with each other. But I know I'm sounding very repetitive. We do need to have conversations to be sure that the choice models in terms of like what kind of stores would I go to if I was the general public versus the products that are in each store. We need to better understand from your perspective, from what's actually happening in the field so that we can capture it in the model. I think that's it for me. You know, I was very repetitive. If anyone wants to say anything else, please go for it.
I just have one thing to say in terms of like changes to algorithm, adding new features, attributes, etc. I think our biggest constraint is just having the data to do so. So if you guys can help us out with or point us in the direction of what data we can use for us to start modeling that, that would be highly appreciated.
Let's get some more reactions to y'all from regarding any of these, our responses to you. Obviously, maybe perhaps one thing that is on your mind is, well, what does this mean in terms of what are you asking of me? Well, in a few weeks, we should have this thing ready for you to try and break. But of course, it's limited. But and as a team, we meet regularly, almost weekly, and our student developers are working real hard all the time, and they just need we may need to hire more developers. I'm not sure. We have to figure that out. But we need to they need to help us figure that out because the features that you all want to add, well, we want to add them. Uh, and so what's the sort of priorities? One priority that I have that's just a personal priority is Darius's priority, which is something I heard one of you all echo, which is how to add a variety of other food access modalities, whether they're farms or pop-up markets or regular farmers markets, to enable people to at least get a 50-cent prediction for what's what happens when they try something out. Um, I know that we were working, those of you who are Wisconsinites, we did work with the Brown Deer Farmers Market and continue to work with them. Brown Deer, Wisconsin is a northern suburb of Milwaukee that's primarily African American. And the suburb, it's a small community. And the farmers market there was principally visited by white folks, middle class, and so what uh, we developed a relationship with them, and with the support of American Family Insurance, we developed a model market program. We made graphics that won a national award. The student who built the graphics from the lab, Arden He, their picture is over Charlie's left shoulder. You can't see it, but their picture's up there. Arden, Arden, and I wrote an article about the tremendous increase in the African American access and use of the market as a result of some simple marketing and some simple outreach techniques. So the the there's if you try it and nothing happens, well, it isn't necessarily, you can point the finger in different directions. Uh, and one of the directions to point to is how do we develop a good marketing campaign to scaffold people's interest and participation in something? That said, I'd love to see more, experimentation of this sort. And we know, again, that experimentation is costly as well. But hopefully a tool like this can help make some predictions about that before you actually try something. So other reactions to what has been said so far, our responses or other questions that this has stirred up?
Are you still looking for like additional sort of data layers, suggestions, or data sources, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yes.
So some things that I think came up for me was being able to look at different age groups, like seniors. You can click the button, see how does this affect food access for seniors, maybe people with disabilities or people who have mobility issues, then that might include seniors. So there might be like a factor in there that like reduces mobility or whatever. I don't want to assume, but are there differences in calculations for urban and rural areas? Maybe people are willing to drive farther in rural areas. Maybe it's not at all walkable in certain rural areas. Something that we're looking at a lot at Second Harvest is culturally responsive foods. And so I don't know if there would be any way to layer on that race, ethnicity, or sort of like ethnic grocer designations. I don't know. And then I think, as Jackie mentioned, like SNAP and SNAP retailers. So both like having some households be enrolled in SNAP and then showing what retailers accept SNAP and if that changes things. And I think, as Janet said, just to kind of like build on that, kind of from the other end, instead of adding or subtracting the grocery store, adding to the income, like via like if there are vouchers or if there are like cards, preloaded cards that can be used at grocery stores, other ways of kind of getting folks access to food. And then just a note on the food insecurity data that Janet mentioned. As a member of Feeding America, we get access to more data than the public does. So we have census tract level food insecurity estimates for the general population, for Black, white, Latino, for children and adults. So if that data would be useful, that's something I think we can share. I don't know. I don't want to say something wrong, Jackie, if I know. So yeah.
That would
That,
be
go ahead, Jackie. Go
that
ahead.
would be very, very useful. Is what I wanted to say. And if we can maybe have a talk outside of it, or maybe even now in terms of what would that entail, if there's any specific like signatures that you need, maybe an MOU or whatnot, that we would need to go through, and we can also have that.
Yeah, I think we could easily send Devika, I'm thinking of like what you helped me do for the counties. So we could break it down by county, like what the food insecurity rate is. I do also just want to add, I don't know if you guys have talked to Wisconsin Grocers Association about any of this. So we partner with them in our advocacy work. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we had a recent conversation with them where many of the rural grocery stores don't have the electronic capability to be able to use a SNAP card. And so I think that there's something to be thinking about when you're thinking about those grocery stores that are in rural communities, what they have access to, and they're closing left and right because they can't necessarily be sustained. So that's one piece. And then the other thing that I just feel like there's some synergy there. I don't know what it looks like, but with United Way's 211 system and or Wire, so that's their data system that is also looking at all these different layers of community support. I do feel like there could be some connections there too. I'm happy to connect you to Charlene, who's the CEO at United Way Wisconsin. But I just feel like you guys are kind of doing similar things. So there could be some connections there.
That would be great. Perhaps she could listen to this at 2 times the speed, right? And so shout out. So, or should I go like the shout out? Not she heard me regular speed, right? Anyways, I'm sorry. This has been terrific. We meet typically on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Central Time. Okay. And so Devika, I would welcome you to consider joining us maybe not the next meeting or two because Thanksgiving is coming up. But when are we targeting? Are we targeting the December software release for this, for our initial model, which is what day, Carlos?
Yeah, the software release for Icicle is, let me just check the calendar, will be
Thank
December 13th.
December 13th. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got so whatever else we're going to do to this particular version, we're going to do then by then. There's something else I could share with you all. Here, I think, is this it? Let me see. Oh no, sorry. This is not, that's the call that I had prior to this one. Safari select questions. Nope. Shoot. So we have not only Rose's survey, but we also have a pretty long list of questions
Okay.
that would be helpful that you all may find helpful or that we would probably find helpful. Yeah, here's the questions for stakeholders. I'm going to foreshadow this
They
and
they're
see if,
they're included in the survey, Alfonso.
or are they all in the
Yeah.
survey? That entire list? Oh, okay. Well, golly. Then what's great about Jackie and anybody else who manages people on this call, it's always better to work with people that are smarter than you, right? And who are on the ball. And so we do, it's a gift. The students that we get to work with are a gift. And so with that, I think, and with great thanks to y'all, I will let y'all go. Uh, any other closing remarks from anybody?
And just put something in the chat where I think it would be a good test case for the Healthy Retail Access Program. The city of Madison runs this program. I think it'd be a really good test case. So I
Yeah,
will see if we can invite you out to do a presentation.
that'd be great. That'd be great. And so yeah, please ask Jackie to connect us over there to United Way so we can get them this call. And folks like you that think across these silos, that think technically, think with research chops, and think with the care for others, right? We would welcome your participation here, Devika, okay?
Yeah, I love the work you're doing. It's amazing. Yeah, please feel free to I would love to join further conversations.
Okay, well, bless it. Thank you. Best wishes to everybody. See you later. Hey, team. Man, awesome.
Should I stop the
Awesome
recording?
job. Yeah, stop the